We're going to get in touch with Mr. Ved Seeraram.
Mikey?
Pleasure. Good evening, Mr. Seeraram.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, and Happy New Year to you and your family. All the best for 2024.
Yes, all the best to you as well and the family.
Yes.
And,
It's 2024. We're looking at some of the predictions as far as the economy.
right.
Message to the nation by the Prime Minister. He says that in welcoming 2024, he sees signs of hope. And Prime Minister Rowley says that he's pleased that the government can state that it greets the new year with a renewed sense of optimism. And he mentioned the strengthening of TNT's energy base, enhancing the nation's infrastructure, improve the conditions for investments, and continue the attempts to improve and make the daily lives of citizens safer. I don't want to be a pessimist here. I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. Because I live in this country. We all are citizens, and we want the best for Trinidad and Tobago. But the reality lies where many of us are saying, listen, we've been struggling. There has been signs of mismanagement. SMEs have been hit hard. Many of them affected by, of course, the pandemic, and even before the pandemic even took place. Many of them didn't have an economic lifeline. So when we talk about this renewed optimism, what's your take on that?
Well, I think we've heard that story before every year. And there's we heard it in the budget as well, that we have turned the corner. And we have to say, to judge whether based on past promises and past performance, past expectations, past statements by the Prime Minister and ministers in government, whether they came to pass, and the answer is absolutely not. So it is worrying, but again, I agree with you. We have to be eternally optimistic because we have to live in hope, but follow up hope with action in the sense that protect your family as much as possible. You have to work as harder than before to just stay alive. You have to be running just to stay in the same position. And people...
But Mr. Seeraram, with all due respect, we've heard this before. How much more tightening? How much more sacrificing? How much more do we have to endure living in a country where we just need to be happy because we're just simply getting along or we're getting by? We didn't put ourselves in this situation. And then there are those who would make pronouncements to justify what is going on by telling us about global forecasters saying that the prediction for 2024 will be a year of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, and all of these things. But in other countries, when these things take place, they look at it as opportunity. We simply can't just say, listen, it's happening because of what's going on with Israel and Hamas. It's happening because of what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. At the end of it all, what are we doing to insulate our economy to protect us in order for us to have a future moving forward? People are just sick and tired of this sort of shallow, empty rhetoric as far as how best we can get along and how best we can survive. When are we going to start living beyond that?
Yeah, well, Mikey, this is just the point I'm making, and if I had my say, I would appoint you as Prime Minister because you hit the nail on the head. We are not living in an isolated world. All of us in Trinidad know that we are open. Our economy is open. So we have to take into consideration what is happening abroad. Do you know the problem in the Red Sea? I think 12 or 20% of global trade passes through the Red Sea. And now you have virtually a virtual war happening now. If that affects international trade, what is going to happen? It's going to affect all of us. China is not as rosy as we are made to believe. Do you know the latest report is that there are 100 million apartments vacant? Do you understand the meaning of that? 100 million apartments in China were built with no demand. No demand. Cities, thousands of cities have been built in China with no demand. Now all those construction added to the GDP of China and the problem. So when you look at the global economy, things are not bright. So suddenly Trinidad is the brightest spot in the world today. Guyana is in serious problems. They are enjoying prosperity for the time being. We don't know how that will turn out with regards to Venezuela. Suppose America tell Venezuela, look guys, let's shake hands and make peace, and let the Americans work the block. The same block that they're trying to claim now. They say let the Americans work the block. America has no loyalty at the end of the day except for dollars and cents. And you're seeing it all over the world. If you look at Shell's experience in Nigeria, they were actually running the government of Nigeria via bribes and so on. So we are with a...
You're breaking up a bit. I don't know if you're moving, but you're breaking up a bit.
No, I'm not moving. I'm very
but one of the things that we're hearing, of course, is the CSO noted a return to growth of 3% in the first quarter of 2023, and followed by signs of further growth in the second quarter. This was led by good performance in the non-energy sector, which also showed an uptick in employment as business resumed operations fully after the deep destruction of the pandemic. So additionally, the unemployment rate recorded as a decline of 3.7% in the second quarter, indicating that thousands of persons gained employment compared to previous years. Now, it doesn't say whether it's temporary employment, whatever, but a lot of these figures, of course, and statistics can always be used to manipulate whatever the situation may be. I think we need to go with what the reality is as far as interacting with people, talking, having conversations. And I think these are the real economic indicators and signs that tells us exactly what's going on in the country. Now, it's easy to throw figures at people when there's nothing to back it up. But taking into consideration all that has taken place and the full year, as the Prime Minister said, of operations since the pandemic, what's on the drawing board for 2024 besides taxes?
Well, just imagine taxes is another layer of expense. And if they introduce that property,
wherever you're sitting there, Ved, we're not getting you clear. If you can move, we're not picking you up clearly wherever you're sitting.
Let me move. Hold on.
Because we want to make sure and get this information, because there are people who are saying, listen, what's going to happen to the economy? Is anything going to change? Is it going to get better?
Can you hear me better now?
Go right ahead. Yeah.
You can. Okay, great. Yeah, you see, I have a serious problem with economics and the matrices that they use to measure economic performance. And I don't know if I mentioned it to you before. GDP has some major flaws in GDP. There are major flaws in GDP. Gross domestic product. There's a small country that they used to mine potash. That's the dropping from the birds for years. It accumulated on the islands, right? And when you measure a country performance by gross domestic product, you do not depreciate anything. So they were well off till the last shipment left, and after that there was nothing left in the island to export. And so suddenly economic activity dropped to virtually zero. All these years they never provided for depreciation, and therefore they arrived at a situation where they were overstating how much they were producing by not minusing that you're utilizing your machinery and equipment, your resources and so on, and you have never been minusing it from your production for the year. And that's a big problem with GDP. Let me ask you again, one company could be doing very, very well, and GDP actually improves for the country, but that is not distributed among the normal citizens. It's not distributed to government. You have an increase in GDP. And dealing with the statistics, if Bill Gates walk into a bar and there are 15, 20 people, on average all of them are billionaires. So what nonsense we have been looking at? We've just been looking at the wrong matrices all the time. And I think I've been calling on economists and they to really redefine how we measure the economy. We have to redefine how we measure it. And there are ways to measure the economy that is more realistic, and you are correct. Who measures the unemployment rate? what is the methodology for doing it? How do they put that into a number that we can have credibility on? And if you ask the average person in Trinidad and Tobago, they're struggling twice as hard as 5 years ago. So you're correct, Mikey. The unemployment rate, you cannot believe anything that these government nor the institutions tell us. You cannot believe it, and therein lies a big problem.
Yeah, and again, what are we going to look at as far as this year? The only thing that I mentioned was property tax, and many people are saying that there's a reluctancy to pay it, but people simply don't have the money to pay it. Many people don't. I mean, you have people, senior citizens on a fixed income. Remember, these people have to pay for medicine, they have to pay for housing and all these expenses, and most times that money is gone even before it's received in their hands. How are they going to find an extra $400 or $500 a month to pay this property tax?
You're so correct. What is going to happen is that many persons are going to try to sell their houses, and there's already what I've been considering for years. There's already an oversupply of commercial, industrial, as well as residential properties in Trinidad and Tobago. So people now will have to sell their houses and try to fit in back with your parents and grandparents and survive. There'll be, what is not a statistic, if you notice away, you will get statistic as how many homes were repossessed, how many cars were repossessed. In Trinidad, you don't get anything. Everything is blank. So we have reverted way back to the 1960s and 70s when with regards to disclosure of data.
Yeah. Ved, that brings us to the end of our interview. I want to thank you so much. We'll be talking to you again in the near future because we want to expand on these topics. But again, I want to thank you, to you and your family, all the best for 2024. And it's always a pleasure to have you on. And let's see what happens in 2024. We'll keep knocking at these issues.
And best wishes to all the viewers and all listeners.
Thank you so much. We'll keep knocking on these issues.